Good morning. Welcome to Morning Coffee Live. I hope all the mothers out there had a wonderfully happy Mother's Day, and for all the fathers out there, hope you took great care of the mothers. I want to talk about a couple things today. Quick follow up on my last stream on the CTE, as well as want to talk a bit about finance in marketing. Uh, as usual, there's always lots going on there to unpack. So, first, quick follow up on my CTE stream from last week. Call to emotion. I don't know if I coined the phrase. I actually haven't even Googled it yet to see if anyone else has been playing with it. Let me see. Call to emotion. Okay, appeal to emotion is there. Yeah, okay. So an appeal to emotion is an informal fallacy because the problem lies in the content of the arguments, the absence of logical reasoning, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, the term is used in logic as an appeal to emotion versus an appeal to logic in making an argument. And when you're having a logical argument, yes, an appeal to emotion can be a logical fallacy quite frequently because you're trying to argue something that should be logical with emotion. In marketing, it's a little different. Emotions are not a faulty play, if you will. It's not cheating. Emotions are how people make decisions. So having an intentional call to emotion is so incredibly valuable in all of your marketing, yet nobody dedicates any time to it. So, on that note, I am currently working on a white paper for it, which will be the next issue of the Marketing Frontier coming out. So, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to that while you're at it. Might as well go ahead and click a like on this video if you take a look. It helps more people see it. But yeah, the call to emotion, absolutely fascinating in my opinion, because it's what really drives action in marketing beyond logic. People don't look at an ad and go, "Oh, that makes logical sense. If I buy that, I therefore don't need that." Is that people don't look at marketing as a if A then B when they're making a purchasing decision. Most purchases are based on a feeling, not on a thought. And so having strong CTEs allows you to create that feeling in people that will drive the action that you want. Second thing I want to bring up on my call to emotion stream and just mention is an interesting one. YouTube took down the video. They blocked it. And what they told me was that it was copyright infringement because I used Apple's video in mine. Now, interestingly, within fair use doctrine, I think I get off free and clear on that one due to the fact that I made it into a news slash educational piece. I really don't think there is any risk of a cease and desist or anything along those lines. But what's interesting is YouTube did take the opportunity to jump on it and shut it down. So the video, I got an email from YouTube at, let's see, 11 a.m. saying that the video was live. And then I got another one here, let's see, at 11:36 a.m. saying that copyrighted content has been detected in your video. As a result, your video has been blocked and can no longer be played on YouTube. This is not a copyright strike and does not affect your channel. And then for the content used, it specifically said the Crush video, iPad, Pad Pro, Apple, content owner, Apple, content type, audio, video. Impact on my video is that it was blocked globally. What can I do? I could leave the video as is if I'm fine with the restriction. Excuse me. So I can leave it as is if I'm fine with nobody ever seeing it. I can edit out the segment by trimming, muting, or replacing the copyrighted content with the YouTube video editor. And I can always revert the changes. Um, and then, but that doesn't work for in the case of my video because for my video showing the ad, you need to see the ad and know the ad to be able to understand the discourse around it. So that doesn't really help me. I can submit a dispute to the content owner if I have rights to the content. Well, I don't have rights to the content in the sense of I didn't purchase rights. I'm not going to go to Apple and tell them, hey, I have the right to use this. And then the fourth option they give you is re-upload the video if you can remove the copyrighted content with your own tools. Nowhere do they give you an out for fair use. I'm not going to bother fighting it. It's a single video. It's not a big deal. It's also, I think, still available on LinkedIn if you want to see it, as well as on X. But just interesting to note that YouTube jumped in and removed it without warning, without anything, as a copyright violation, ignoring fair use practice as far as I could tell. Because under fair use, I did not appropriate it for profit. I did not use it for, sell my product type thing. I did a report on it, a review of it, and it was a publicly running ad. We watched it on YouTube. It's not like I, stole this from someone. So just interesting how that popped up. And it also touches on another thing that all marketers need to be aware of: legalities. Excuse me. Sorry, still a little bit of a right there. The law. Marketers do need an understanding of some law. Not all law. We don't have to be lawyers to be in marketing, but all marketers should think back to their time in college. If they took any kind of media law and ethics course, here's the basic things they should always remember: libel, slander, copyright infringement, because those are the three that marketers are most guilty of. Slander is when you talk negatively about someone, cause damage to their reputation. There's a number of factors to determine whether something is actually slanderous or not. There's different elements that it must achieve, including how it's told, who it's told to, whether or not it's truth. Truth tends to be an absolute defense in the case of slander or libel. Libel, libel. A lot of people get confused on that one. What is libel? And they get libel and slander confused. The easiest or the biggest difference between libel and slander is libel is spoken. Sorry, slander is spoken. Libel is written. That's the major difference between the two. And there are things you need to be very careful of in marketing. If you're trying to, if you're doing a ad of some sort and you decide you want to poke fun at somebody to make, create some humor or to make a point or this or that, you need to be very careful in what you're doing. If you're not, you're going to end up on the wrong side of either a libel or slander lawsuit. And then I said the third area of law to be very careful about is copyright. The most common place you see copyright issues in marketing is images. You get marketers who are in a rush or don't know any better. They go on to Google, they type in a search for something, they take the first image or any image they find in their Google results, and they use that in their marketing. And well, the problem is they don't own that image. And what ends up happening is, depending on where the image came from, you get anywhere from a please take that down to a cease and desist to a lawsuit. Something for marketers specifically to be very careful about is there's a lot of people that's their business model. Would you come back down, please? Thank you. Off the desk. That's their business model. There's a number of companies out there. I've run into this myself. I've seen it where people put images out that look really good. They're labeled as free. If you click on Google and you switch to the search, this and that, if you read the fine print, it turns out they're actually trying to get you. And what ends up happening is if you ever use that image thinking that it is free, next thing you know is you start getting letters from an attorney saying you use our image, blah, 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 we're going to sue you, this and that. And then they try to get you to pay them, usually an absurd amount of money for the use of that image, like $10,000, $20,000, to make it go away. So three areas of law to be very, very careful of if you're marketing: slander, libel, copyright infringement. Said in my case, I don't think there was actually any copyright infringement. I think I fall squarely under the fair use doctrine. I am not going to try to fight it to get the video back, but if they, ever pushed, I think I have an incredible defense there because I turn into a educational thing, use it for another purpose, even though I use it in its entirety. It was used for a separate purpose. And then secondly, the interesting thing there is with an ad, their ad was designed for people to see. So I could actually make an argument that I was expanding their reach. But either way, just wanted to call that out. It was just something that popped up. That's also why I didn't stream yesterday, as I thought I got pulled down. I also went, uh-oh. I did a little bit more research just to make sure I wasn't going to get in trouble. Last thing I need is Apple coming after me because I decided to do a critical analysis of one of their ads for marketing people. Okay, well, that's enough on that. Other thing I wanted to jump into today is marketing finance. This is an area where, well, quite frankly, there's been a constant battle going on here. So, two areas of finance I want to talk about in marketing. One, the fact that budgets are dropping, um, and they're dropping continuously. And then the second one is less about the budgets, but more about proving the efficacy, and that's the marketing ROI problem. Marketing ROI has been a huge issue for many years where marketers can't prove their ROI or don't know how. And quite frequently, it leads to removals of CMOs, and it just really leads to the fact that in this day and age, CMOs and CFOs, sorry, not CMOs, CEOs and CFOs are fairly well convinced in many cases that CMOs aren't worth their salt. And what it is there's a disconnect between the CMO and the rest of the C suite. The C suite has always been very, very focused on the bottom line, on the dollars, on what makes the business function. Finance, dollars and cents, ROI being a huge piece of that. Why would someone in the C suite give you money if you can't prove what you're doing with it? And marketers run into the problem of they don't know how to explain what they're doing with it or prove their efficacy. And it's run into a constant issue. And so there was an article came out from Martech just this morning. There we go. The marketing ROI problem has its roots in marketing culture. Problems demonstrating marketing ROI? Think about company performance rather than marketing performance and reconsider your metrics. This is a great summary right here. And the reason I say that is I think 90% of the issues with the marketing ROI problem come down to this piece right here. And you know what? I blame marketers. I don't blame the rest of the C suite. I fully, squarely lay the blame on us. And the reason is marketers are so busy thinking about marketing performance that they forget about their company performance and they don't pay attention to it. They are so caught up in all the marketing metrics. And mind you, we've developed so many of them between CPA, CPMs, this, that, the other. You have your cost per click, cost per milli, cost per acquisition. You have your cost for this, cost for that. We have so many things we're spending money on. There's cost per conversions, there's cost per, literally everything has a cost per that marketers are looking at because we want to try to track the dollars. And marketers get really caught up in these things. But the thing is, most of them are marketing metrics. They are metrics showing how well your marketing tactics performing. For example, if you run a new ad, your CPM, your cost per milli, which is cost per thousand impressions, is not going to tell you how that ad affected your bottom line. What it's going to tell you is the cost of getting in front of your audience. But it doesn't tell you what getting in front of that audience, what the return is. It's a very short sighted, it's an upfront metric, right? And that's where CMOs miss it, is they don't take it the step farther. You can look at your cost per click. Now that gets a little closer. They got to your website. Well, that's great. Now you know how much it costs using your digital marketing to get someone to your website. What's the return on that? Unless you give a return number on that, the CEO and the CFO don't care about what it costs to get to your website because that is not the cost of a sale. The cost of a client doesn't show any kind of return on investment. What if you go to a deeper level? You go cost per conversion. Well, depending on what your conversion tags set as, that can be better. But in most cases, it's not a direct sale. It's not something where you can tie it directly to revenue just because you have a conversion. Well, what if you go to ROAS, return on ad spend? Well, the truth is, most marketers don't calculate a ROAS or don't do it properly. Most people in marketing using a ROAS are only using the ROAS available in platform, let's say from Google, that will use its algorithms based on your tagging to tell you your return on ad spend. It also misses the effects of branding, et cetera. And so it's even if it gives a maybe a little better number, it's not a end all be all. And this is a big problem in marketing. If we can't prove value, what good are we? And they say this article here from Martech says that has its roots in our marketing culture. Why is putting a figure on marketing ROI still a problem? While advances in marketing analytics and technology have been made, a significant portion of businesses still report facing difficulties in calculating ROI. In the fall 2023 CMO survey, CMOs report increased pressure from the CFO to properly report and improve marketing ROI. The problem marketing ROI is simple, but it's difficult to solve. In essence, many marketing leaders know how to drive marketing results. However, they not focus or not know how to market internally. Here's the distinction. They can drive marketing results. Question is, are they driving financial results? If you don't do that math, you don't know. For most marketing functions, there's two primary roadblocks to effective internal promotion and developing ROI measures that the CFO and CEO can buy into. The right metrics. Martech's an asset, but also a distraction from our ROI measurement. Yeah, everyone tries to solve it through Martech. They think, oh, there's got to be a digital solution. While there may be, more often than not, marketing is complex enough. There's enough factors involved that it's not a one size fits all solution where you could just go buy a new piece of tech stack and solve the problem. In most cases, you need to get creative and you need to really think about what your marketing is doing and what you want to measure to determine what's actually happening. And, advancing one-to-one attribution are still imperfect and constant balance with consumer privacy. Yeah. Where does this disconnect where we can't just tie it together come from? Well, it's really about this right here. Consumer privacy and one-to-one attribution. When you're doing marketing, you're pushing a message out to tons of people. How they act on that message afterwards can be get a little murky. When you're doing a PPC campaign, sure, it's easy to see, oh, somebody clicked. And then when they clicked, they got to your website. Oh, look, they went over, they made a purchase or they set up a call or whatever it may be, whatever the next step is. And you can go, boom, and slap an ROI on that. It's a little more complicated where when somebody sees your billboard driving down the highway, how do you now know when that person comes to your website and make a purchase so that in marketing you can attribute that sale to your billboard? That's the type of area where things get complicated. What if it was a social media post, an organic post that somebody read about it and their story just resonated with them and like, oh my gosh, this company's amazing. They go and they make a purchase. Well, that's a marketing attributed sale. How do you attribute it to your marketing? How do you know it ever happened? That's where that one-to-one attribution becomes an issue. When we start talking about the depreciation of the third-party cookie, which is also coming, once again delayed by Google, thankfully, but on its way still has been for years now. We've been talking about it. It gets even more complicated. You end up in very murky waters. So, how do you measure the true ROI of your marketing when you start running into all these fringe cases where it's hard to draw a straight line? Well, a couple of ways to do it. One, more data. Two, more logic. On the more data side, what you can do is really smarten up your tech stack and make sure that you are doing identification of your site traffic. If you are identifying your site traffic, what you can do is you can start creating 1P data that shows who people are and start seeing more repeat visits, things like that, beyond just a simple ID. You can start actually tracking it down to who these people are, not putting a name and face on them. Once again, there are the privacy issues you have to contend with, but get a better understanding of who's on your site so you can follow them around more. The second thing is get creative with how to measure exposure. For example, if you're doing a billboard, Use a QR code that, one option is use a QR code. Now, mind you, not everyone who sees it is going to use a QR code, but it's going to help. You're at least going to see a certain number of people. The other thing you do, and this is what I think one of the easiest ones that nobody seems to do. I mean, some people do, but just not enough. Ask your customers, ask your clients, where did you hear about us? In the purchase decision somewhere to with a bonus, with somehow, somewhere in your sales process, you're going to capture your customers' information. When you do so, ask them how they learned about you. Make it simple. Don't make it hard for your customer to tell you. Offer them some kind of benefit in return. Heck, make it they get a 5% discount on checkout if they tell you where they found out. It doesn't matter. The point is, ask your customers. If you're a B2B brand and your customers have a 16, 18-month sales cycle and it takes them forever to close, somewhere in that sales cycle, learn from them. Track that. If you sell a product online, just through an e-shop where you never have an interaction, somewhere in the checkout, have a how did you hear about us? And make it simple. Have your options be, social media, this, that, the other thing. I know everyone wants to tie it back to an exact campaign, an exact piece of copy, this, that, the other thing, which when you can, that's great. But when you can't, you want to at least get a better feel for whether or not they came in via marketing. For example, if you're selling widgets and you have a widget billboard in your checkout, you can have how did you learn about this product? Company website, from a friend, billboard, social media, Google ad. Simple as that. They click it and you say, thank you so much for answering. Please enjoy 5-10% off your next purchase, whatever you want it to be, and get that data point. Excuse me. Every time you can identify another sale attributed back to marketing, you can build a better picture holistically of what your marketing's doing. You're not going to capture every sale. You're not going to know every time, every single one. And it doesn't change the fact that the more data you can generate, the better you can do it. The better you can do it, the better estimations you can make. The second way I'm going to talk about for tying it back is get creative. Look at things like your history of sales over a time period. Let's say you look at your average sales in the month of May, and you look at that average sales in the month of May for the past 2 years, 3 years. Factor in different things that have got on, company growth, overall, yada yada yada, and figure out what your typical sales are for May. And then when you run your May campaign, look at your difference in sales for after a new marketing campaign, let's say, compared to baseline. That's something you could do if you haven't been doing marketing all along to measure. So if you normally sell 100 products every May, but you run a brand new marketing campaign and it runs the month of May with whatever that marketing campaign is, and then this May you sell 150 products, stop right there and go, wow, that's great. Don't immediately jump in and say marketing led to 50 sales. If you do that, your CEO and your CFO is going to come after you. And the reason is they're going to say, well, what about growth? This, that, the other thing. But what you can do is you can take your average over your last couple of years. You can see the trajectory and you go, okay, and you can look at it and say, well, 100 is what we did last year, but based on 20% growth of the company year over year, yada yada yada, we were expecting 120 this year, and instead of 120, we turned 150. You can now make a pretty good argument that you led to 30 of those sales. Can you directly prove it? Not necessarily, but you can start arguing in that direction. And where you cannot directly attribute to your marketing campaign, sometimes it's the best you could get that you need to do. Look at that as an individual puzzle piece and put more and more of those pieces together. Add in data, add in metrics, look at historicals, look at your general cost per acquisition, on and on and on. One of the ways like I've had to do it before is through PPC campaigns where there was not a purchase at the end because it turned into like a 18-month sales cycle and close. What you would do is you would look at what's the close rate? How many people close in total? Look at lifetime customer value, right? Go ahead and look at Right. Look at your close rate, look at your average customer value, look at your click to conversion rates, and then look at your view to click rates. And you can actually back into the numbers and determine from your marketing campaign how much you even need to spend to drive a certain amount of revenue if you know your conversion rates. You can also show your efficacy as far as what you're doing in the reverse by going, here's how much we put in, here's how many people drove forward, here's the conversion rate. But you got to follow the data to the end. Most marketers, the moment that someone's clicked and they get to a website and they submit a lead form, they get handed off to sales, and in most cases, they're never heard from again. Instead, what ends up happening is the sales team goes over and starts complaining to everyone else that the marketing team's giving bad leads. And the marketing team's over putting together their next marketing campaign going, look at all the leads we drove. And there's no communication. Marketers, get with your sales teams and get a better understanding of what's converting, what's not. The leads you're delivering, how are they performing? What's the goods, the bads, and the uglies? The more marketers get involved across the marketing function involving sales, communication, etc., into the mix, the better they're going to do in that case. So those are kind of two ways to help achieve it. But coming back to here, right? The right metrics. Even if you achieve perfect sales attribution, direct and indirect, it's still not earnings or profit, and not all marketing exposures are trackable. Marketing funnel metrics such as click through rate, cost per acquisition, cost per lead, cost per sale are important and can be used to demonstrate growing marketing efficiency. Many marketers believe these metrics are ROI, but they are not ROI. They are ROI adjacent. Very good point. These metrics are not ROI. True ROI is focused on earnings, cash flow, and margin. Finally, while advances in MarTech are empowering and important, marketing leaders should also recognize their distraction value when it comes to communicating marketing effectiveness to other company leaders. Yeah, at the end of the day, remember your marketing metrics are not ROI. And to show ROI on a marketing campaign, it's doable, but difficult. And you're going to figure out for your specific instance. And generally, at the end of the day, you're going to have to sit down with your CEO and your CFO, and you're going to have to come to a consensus and an agreement on what does and doesn't count for ROI because it's not an exact science. Second, branding. Too much art, not enough science. Branding, our brand development is a critical function, yada, 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 drives long-term health of the business. It's also where quantifying ROI represents the or presents the biggest challenge. Yeah, this is a tough one. Branding is not intended to drive a direct, immediate click. It's not a demand campaign. It's just letting people know you're out there, keeping them top of mind, teaching more about your brand, on and on and on. There's lots of functions of brand, but it's also harder to measure the impact of brand. Now, mind you, we all know that there's value to a brand. And how you know that is, well, if you walk into a grocery store or a gas station right now and are thirsty, you are more likely to grab a Coke, a Pepsi, a Budweiser, an Aquafina, you're going to go grab your beverage based on a brand. And you're not going to do it even necessarily consciously. You'll probably already have a favorite brand that you go to. Power of brand's huge. How do you put a dollar sign to that? That gets tough. One of the ways that marketers are trying to deal with this one that you see very frequently is they go, oh, I know how to solve that. Cut our brand budget. They start cutting their branding because they can't prove efficacy. Well, you run into an issue there as well. Brand is what feeds demand. It's what fuels people. If unless your product 100% speaks for itself, brand is valuable because there's competing brands. There's brand values, etc. People in this day and age, especially, marry their brands to a great extent, and therefore you don't want to neglect brand, but you run into the issue then of how do you measure it? Yeah. What's more, branding leaders constantly promote the intangible benefits of brand work, making the effort to calculate ROI seem futile. And I'm making the argument for this right now in a certain extent, and that is, yeah, it is intangible predominantly with brand. In the short term, in the long term, it's more value than any individual product campaign, making sure you have a brand. So let's see what they say here. This does not have to be the case. At the end of the day, branding is designed to grow customer loyalty, increase consideration, lower the cost of acquisition. Yes. Solution. The biggest challenge facing the quantification of marketing ROI is focus on marketing performance at the expense of company performance. While the two are related, making the connection is not trivial. Often it requires specific initiative and ongoing work. Marketing leaders can be brilliant, intuitive, and creative. This makes them great promoters of the organization, but terrible promoters of the marketing function. Marketing leaders need to put on two hats: marketing management, internal leadership. First hat focuses on marketing management leadership, managing activities that drive the metrics and KPIs that drive effectiveness. Yada, yada. Great marketing leaders know how to manage their budgets and allocate resources to improve marketing results. Sure, this is the basics of marketing. Internal leadership. And this is where most marketers fail. And that is recognizing that most marketing metrics are jargon and not sufficient and may even be a distraction from conveying the value of marketing to the rest of the C suite. The reality is that most marketing metrics are not the lens through which most C suite leaders view the business. Occasionally, key marketing metrics may impress them, for example, the CEO may be very impressed if the cost of acquisition is lowered by 25%. However, the subsequent question eventually comes down to what does this mean for my bottom line earnings and cash flow? To properly address questions from the CFO and impress other senior leaders, it's not about impressing people, it's about just making a good argument for what you do. Should dedicate a portion of their resources to financial analysis of marketing activities. Most marketing departments think of marketing finance as a budgeting exercise that places the greatest focus on the I in ROI. When it comes to the R, or return, is often a hodgepodge of KPIs and metrics that spark some cynicism, even among the most sympathetic C-suite leaders. So if you jump into the solutions here, the solution is they don't have a solution yet. Again, it's do better marketing, right? Because once again, this is the hard question to answer. And how you do this is you have to get really creative. And that's coming back to some of those other ideas it's talking about, depending on your specific circumstance. Maybe it's looking at, maybe it's generating new data. Maybe it's looking at holistic things. Maybe it's looking at change in sales, year over year, month over month, whatever it may be, in line with campaigns, things like that. There's 1,001 ways to approach the question. The issue is there's no simple solution. So for marketers, look at your specific circumstance, determine what KPIs you do and don't have available to you, and then determine what matters most. And then anywhere you can, trace things as far down the line as possible. I said, if you're selling something with a long sales cycle, be talking to your sales team and have a feedback loop there so that 18 months down the road, when that lead you delivered via marketing campaign closes, you get the credit for that. Make sure you're looking at the ones that don't close because you want to know what your conversion rates are, et cetera. As you develop those things through time, you will get to the point where you'll have data to be able to put together benchmarks, and you'll know that, when I ran this campaign last year, X percentage close with a average revenue of this, we made X number of dollars on this campaign last year. And then going into this year, you can now plan accordingly. You could say, if I put in, $100, I'm going to get 10 clicks, of which I'm going to get 5 conversions, of which I'm going to get 2 closed deals, which are going to give me this much money back, right? And then you can use that to set your budgeting and to also show your value to the rest of the C-suite. When you hit that level, that you can actually go back and show dollars and cents of here's what we did, that's where you're going to find real success in marketing. And that's where you're going to truly earn your seat at the table in the C suite as well, when you can tie your marketing right back to revenue at the end of the day. And if you don't do that, you're going to run into a bigger issue. And that's the fact that people are cutting marketing left and right. And a lot of CMO roles have become a revolving door. And as I said, the only ones that blame at the end of the day are the marketers who aren't doing a good enough job showcasing their value. So I was going to jump a little bit into just the overall marketing dropping as a share of revenue. But I'm out of time for that today, so we'll probably jump back into that tomorrow. But quick preview is, as a share of revenue, marketing has fallen to a post-pandemic low. Marketers are getting less money to work with, and they're expected to do more with it. Less is more has become the new mantra of marketing, and as everybody knows, you cannot make more out of less unless you get really creative. So we will start jumping into that conversation a bit tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone, and have a wonderful day.